Hey y'all, so today I'm going to talk about how to start a nonprofit after school program. Let's get into it. Hey y'all, it's Tiffany with Bossing the Budget. I help new and small nonprofits get up and running. So if you need help with your nonprofit, make sure you are subscribed to this channel. So I'm going to share today some steps, 5 things basically you should consider if you want to start a nonprofit after school program. And I'm going to be very specific. On this platform, I talk about nonprofits and nonprofit startup. So I just want to acknowledge that you can have a for-profit after school program. And if that's what you choose to do, that's on you. I don't have any opinion either way. But this video in particular is specifically catered to people who want to start nonprofit after school programs. If you do need help trying to figure out like the basics of starting a nonprofit, check out this video I'm linking above, which goes through it in a lot of detail. And also in the description box below, I'm linking the same video and also linking my free nonprofit startup checklist so you can get help with your nonprofit. So you want to start a nonprofit after school program. What are some things you should be thinking about as you start? And this by no means is an exhaustive list. There may be other things you need to consider, but I thought I would pull out at least 5 things you should absolutely have on your list to think about. Also, I want you to wait to the end of the video because I just have a piece of advice for anyone who's thinking to start a nonprofit after school program. This is where you should start first. This will help around all these issues that I'm talking about. So make sure you wait to the end when I mention that bonus tip. So the first piece of it is like the research and the planning piece of it. And there's a lot of things incorporated into this section. So I'll just say, first of all, be clear on who you want to serve and what you're trying to do, right? So there are a lot of different after school programs. There are music after school programs, the arts, sports, right? So you want to think about like what is going to be your lane. Now, overall, if you have a nonprofit organization, this is in line with having like a mission and a vision for your nonprofit. You got to be clear on what you plan to do, who you want to serve, and why it's important to serve them. If you need help with a mission and a vision statement, I'm linking first my mission statement video, and then after that, my vision statement video. So you want to have that just as a basic for your organization in general. But when it comes to the specific program that you're trying to launch, because I recognize that you may have several programs or this may be your only program, when it comes to this program, you want to be clear on the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why. Very, very basic stuff. You need to have an answer to all of those questions so you can be clear on which direction you're going to go. So at a basic level, are you serving adolescents? Are you serving older youth? How old is that? What is the age range? Are you serving kids in a certain area or in a certain neighborhood or that go to certain schools? What about your outcomes? Are you hoping to impact them with their reading scores, with their math? Is it something around the arts? Is it something around a skill set that you want them to learn? Is it just around mentoring and improving their self-image or self-esteem? All of these things you need to understand like what your focus is so you know what your lane is. So at a very basic level, I know it went kind of fast, but I'll say it again. You want to know the answers to the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why. And what's most important, I think, out of all of this is why. What's the point? Because sometimes people start nonprofit programs, unfortunately, because they just want to make money or they've heard that there's a grant available for after school funding. So they think, well, I can just be a nonprofit because the funding is there and I can just make it work that way. But if you're specifically trying to have a nonprofit, you got to understand the implications of all of that and what that means. And it's in my opinion that you need to pursue a nonprofit specifically for more than just the money. That's just not a good enough reason to go through all of what it takes to run a nonprofit. And that's really not the intent, in my opinion, of having a nonprofit, just to access certain funding sources. There are so many other reasons and other ways you want to utilize that status than just to access money. So the second thing you want to consider is what are the curricula you want to use or different program models. So when I say that, there may be a model of how to serve a certain kind of student or to implement some kind of program. There are a bunch of different program models related to the mentoring space and the after school space. So I would recommend you check out some websites below. I'm linking them in the description box that will give you ideas of some of the models and some of the programs that are already out there and that are working well. Now, just because it's a program model doesn't mean it will necessarily fit your context or fit what you're trying to do in your area, but you absolutely want to study other programs to see what they have done, to see what's been successful, so you're not reinventing the wheel. And if someone has a program already built, if they have like steps for recruitment and they have paperwork and data forms that you can use, like sheets and templates that you can use, why not start there so you can have something in mind? And even if you have to build on it, at least you have something to start with. So I would start examining like what are other models, especially models that have been successful. Study how they've been successful, what they've been able to do, and then also study what they may have admitted that they didn't do as well, or lessons they learned, so you can learn those lessons early so you don't have to go through the same struggles that other programs went through. I highly recommend that you look at data. You look at evaluations or studies of programs, because the whole point of those programs is to understand what is helping to make positive outcomes. What is contributing to the change or the good change that we're seeing in this program? And so evaluations study that. They study the factors behind that to see what was that thing, what was that special sauce that made this a successful program. And when you look at evaluation reports or research reports, they will often detail that information for you. And you can use that information as you're designing and developing your own program. The third thing I want you to consider is, what is your business model? So I know I'm talking about nonprofits in this video, and you may have never seen a video from me before, but you absolutely have to understand that a nonprofit is still a business structure. Some people get caught off guard because they see the word nonprofit and they're like, no profit. So why am I thinking about it like a business? Why am I thinking about fundraising at all? Money shouldn't even be, at the forefront. But I'm here to tell you, you absolutely better be thinking about how you're going to make money, and you need to consider what's going to be your source of income, because you don't want to make the mistake of just assuming that, oh, I'm just going to partner with this school or with this government agency and that'll be my money and that's it. And a lot of people do that because they know there are opportunities out there, or they may know people in these agencies that will fund them, but you don't ever want to be in a position where only one agency is funding your whole operation. Because what happens when something happens to that agency or happens to that funding stream? Your program goes poof, right? So you want to be thinking about, what are the different ways that we're going to make money as a nonprofit, and how are we going to be sustainable? And there are a bunch of different steps to this. First, you need to figure out, what's your budget? What is it going to cost to run your program? And then after you figure that out, you have to figure out how much you need to raise, and what are the most likely places that you're going to be able to secure funding and secure it on a regular basis. That's what I mean by sustainability, or being financially sustainable. And you want to think about different ways you can branch out beyond just relying on one type of funding source. Like I mentioned before, you don't want to have one contract be your only source of money, or one grant be your only source of money. You want to think about a variety of things, how you can get money from individuals, how you can get money from earning different ways by selling a product or selling a different service. So if you have questions about that and you're not sure exactly what I'm talking about and you need some help with that, I'm linking a video above that goes through a bunch of different ways that nonprofits make money, so you can get some ideas for how to build a financially sustainable program. The fourth thing you want to consider is, what are important policies you need to have in place, and protections like insurance you need to have in place. So if you're running an after-school program, then the assumption obviously is that you're working with kids under the age of 18, and there are definitely some things you need to have in place when it comes to just protecting not only yourself as an organization, but your staff and the young people that you're working with as well. So I'm not going to give you a list of all the policies you should have or all of the insurances you should have. You should consult a professional for this, but I just want to call out some specific things you want to think about. When it comes to insurance, you want to think about sexual molestation and assault policies. You want to think about If you have volunteers, you want to think about your background check policy and things like that. You also, if you're contracting with a government agency or a school, you want to look at what's required to contract with them, because sometimes they'll have requirements related to insurance that you want to make sure you have in place, which goes back to my last point around financial sustainability and making sure you have the money to be able to support your program. The other thing I would say, because this is a really big category, it's just around like making sure you are aware of the regulatory requirements. You also want to think about what's required at the state level. So your state or your locality may have requirements around licenses that you must have, or certain paperwork that you need to have in place. Now, as a nonprofit in general, there's absolutely requirements at the state level for what you need to have in place, but I'm talking specifically around having an after-school program. There may be a special license or a special approval that you need to go through. So you need to do that research as well to make sure that you have everything in place. And finally, the fifth thing you want to consider is partnerships and collaboration. So you're going to survive based on how big your network is. And that's just a given as a nonprofit. But specifically when you're doing an after-school program, you want to think about who are your key partners in this space. Probably a key partner is a school. I'm sure that you're thinking about this already, but they're a key source for recruitment and finding kids. They may be a key source for finding staff, right? You may be able to hire some teachers as staff for your organization. And they also may be an important resource when it comes to space. So if you don't have a building or you don't have a place to congregate, you may be able to work with the school and actually do your programming in the school. So absolutely, you should be thinking about how to approach partnerships with school. And usually when you want to partner with schools, you can't do it at an individual level. You probably have to go to the district and figure out whatever list you need to be on or whatever like general requirements you need to have. You probably need to take some training and have some kind of certification that they dictate. So you need to start at like the district level or whatever it's called in your locality. You need to start there and ask questions about what's required in order to partner with schools. But partnering on an individual level with schools is important as well. So if you know there are schools you want to target or partner with, identify those schools, identify the counselors or the social workers or the administration, like principals, vice principals, whatever they're called, in that particular school, and start developing individual relationships with them as well. Asking questions about like what they need, what they see their kids need support with, and being helpful and being useful. That's how you develop strong relationships with people in your community. But not just with schools. I want you to think about other entities or other organizations that you may want to partner with in order to have a strong program. So there may be other nonprofits that are doing similar work or even serving the same kids, but they may do something a little different. And so you may complement the work that they do. And then as a result of that, you guys can partner in some way. Maybe you can go in on a grant application and split the money. Like there are so many different ways you can look at this when it comes to collaboration, but it always starts with a conversation, and it starts with you understanding what the other organization's needs are and providing value for them as well, being helpful to that organization. That's always a good place to start. And then from there, you can talk about all the different ways you can partner and assist each other. My bonus tip for this video is that you're not going to know everything starting out. So it's really important that you identify mentors in your space or consultants in your space that have done this work before. So don't just rely on this video and say, I know everything I need to know to start an after-school program. These are just things to consider, things that you don't want to forget about. But there are people who have been doing this work for years, maybe even in your community or just generally, who have special insights that you could never get unless you talk to them directly. So I do think it's important for you to seek out local mentors or people who have done similar work, or if you can't get close to them or if they don't have time, at least study the work that they've done and study how they move so you understand better how you want to move. All right. So don't go into this space thinking you know everything. Be open, be willing to learn, and seek mentorship from people who have done this work before so you can start off on a good foot. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. If you need help, you need to make sure you go to www.bossonabudget.com, and I will see you in the next video.